Welcome to a new episode of the Growth Design Podcast. And in this, we are kicking off the first of our series, which is a Growth Designer's Playbook. And with us for our very first guest series of the year, we have Kristina Volcheck. And there she is. And she'll be joining us for this episode, right? Previously, she was working as a marketing, she worked previously as a marketing manager for large tech companies, and she's someone who was not always a designer. In fact, before switching to design, she was the chief marketing officer with a team of 50 plus people, and she quit her job in 2019 and went freelance as a self-taught designer. She then spent the next 3 years building Webflow and Shopify online stores with an e-commerce agency aligned, an e-commerce agency which is like with her boyfriend who is also a developer. Now in 2021, she started working as a senior product designer at SweatCoin, which is a mobile app that rewards users for walking. She worked on the Grow team with user acquisition as her main focus, and her marketing background has proven deeply useful as during her time at SweatCoin, the app gained 80 million new users, which is mind-blowing. She has the most incredible case study, which Emmanuel and I have been fortunate to listen to when she presented as part of the Growth Designers community, which we all belong to. And we will link all of this in the show notes. Since 2022, Kristina has gone on to teach and mentor UI and product design at Dribbble and Lifties, and I am proud to begin to call her a friend. And I appreciate her so much for joining us today. Welcome to the podcast, Kristina. Oh, that's appropriate.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be there, and it's my first time doing podcasts, so I'm really excited.
So you've had such an amazing journey. So just walk us through, in a nutshell, why design in the first place for you? What exactly was it about design that got you started?
Well, to be honest, it felt very natural to me moving from marketing to design, because during my marketing career, I've been designing a lot. Design is always like a busy place, and you need presentations, you need ads, you need social media posts and everything together, and there is always not enough hands to do so. So as a marketer, you actually do a lot of like very simple, sometimes really ugly designs that is more like UX design in terms of like put the message in the right place and try to kind of like create some kind of traffic. So for me, actually going from marketing was always like design I've already been doing to pure design was a very, very natural move. And also what fascinated me about design the most is actually being able to affect people, to influence them visually. So as a marketer, I was lacking this skill. You have the idea, you have the message, you have the channels, you have the ads to bring the message. And then there is this small gap that annoys so much to visually communicate this message. Yeah. And then when I was able to embrace this gap, and I was like, oh my God, it's so much power. Because visual language is way, way, way more powerful than any other type of communication channels. It's fast, it's accurate, it brings results immediately, it creates emotions, and emotion-driven design or emotion conversions are way stronger than any communication skills you're trying to bring to design. And the biggest advantage for me also was like, as a marketer, you can work for half a year on SEO strategy and expecting bringing results in the future one day. And as a designer, you're starting the project, you're solving the problem, and you have your own designs in Figma. And then the developer will implement them, and you can touch them on your phone or on desktop. It's so much more satisfying.
Yeah. So it's that interactive nature, right? Like your designs actually come alive. I think I can relate a bit to that from coming from the law into brand design perspective. With like legal things, it can be tangible, but at the end of the day, it's not as realistic until you get to the end result, the case is resolved before you have some sort of relief or enjoyment. But with design, there is that almost, what's the word to call it? Like it's like a feedback basically that you're really getting from the work that you've done, right? So I would say then walk me through how that led into growth design for you. And now that you've done traditional design, what's the difference between growth design and the traditional design?
That's a very good question because it's like the hardest one to answer. I will start a bit like that. It's not my first kind of like meeting with growth in general. When I was a marketer, I was involved into a wave of growth hacking. I know it's like, it's a term that like people are ashamed to mention now, but I remember like, and I think the problem with growth hacking is that it was coming not from designers, not from people who are able to connect users, business, and developers in one space. It was coming from marketers or leadership that were interested in a quantity. How many experiments did? Let's do 100, and one of them will be the best experiment of your life. And then I remember like we even had like this growth hacking workshop. The guy came to our office. He was like explaining us that like if we will run thousands of different ads with headings, it will solve our problems. And I was like, how it helps to understand like what users are looking for, like on the other end. So this was like my first dark past thoughts and growth. So the next time when I was coming back to growth and I was freelancing and I was actually white labeling for an American startup that did a very interesting scheme. So, like some companies, they invest money into startups ideas to see how quickly they can return it. And on top of money, they've been investing teams. So they had a lot of contractors, freelancers, advertisers, marketers, growth teams jumping into a startup idea and kind of pushing it to 100% in a month to see if it's like actually working. So this was like my second touch with growth. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know you can do it as a designer. And then later when I was like interviewing at SweatCoin and they were looking for someone to fit this gap, someone who has a bit of marketing understanding, product understanding, and also good project management skills, because as a growth designer, it's something not but you need it a lot. You need to manage a lot. So a person with freelance background who had a lot of marketing activities was a perfect match for them. And here, when I joined SweatCoin, I realized that there is not so much difference between like being just a designer or being a growth designer. You have pretty the same skill set. So in terms of like hard skills, there is not that many changes, but it's a change of mindset. It's a change of how you approach your work, how you think about your work. And because I was coming from marketing background, for me, this approach was default. And I realized even throughout my freelance career, I was always trying to bring this approach to even my freelance projects, which is very hard because you don't have access to data, to users. You can't really run any research. You just like play safe. Let's leave our shopping cart in the place where it is right now. You're still doing a better research in your capacity, but it's not the same. And then I realized like this type of mindset, this approach is actually a skill on its own. It's something that people are looking for when they think of like someone bringing growth design. And it's not only about growth designers, it's about growth team as well. So developers, UX team, engineers, anyone on growth team as a bit different type of people with a bit different mentality. They need to be capable of this growth mindset that allows you to make mistakes, learn from them, and not being afraid of them. Like this fear of mistakes is very common, especially when I work with junior designers. I'm mentoring, so like, they're so afraid of like doing something wrong, and it's a significant blocker when you're trying to break into growth, because you should be so comfortable with making mistakes that it's just like part of your daily routine, and then you notice how it spreads to the rest of your life. So you're a broken person now.
I do love that you're a broken person. I'll probably put that on a t-shirt. While you were speaking about getting used to mistakes, I would actually raise you one and say it's not just junior designers, unfortunately, that are actually still prone to this, because sometimes you can have scenarios where senior designers too might be prone to not wanting to make mistakes. Because I'd say sometimes the higher you grow in your career, it almost feels like the stakes are higher and there is less room. And it's one of the things I kind of appreciate about growth, where it's like, it's about making those assumptions and you've got the freedom, so to speak, right, to be able to test those assumptions. And even if it doesn't work out, that is still all part of the job. Where sometimes we've seen scenarios where pixel perfection drives it. Now, this is not for all scenarios, but in some companies, that is the primary concern, right? And in those kind of environments, I imagine it might be harder to feel like you cannot make mistakes in those kind of scenarios, right?
Yeah, environment plays a huge role. Like whenever you work in growth teams, you need to create a safe space for growth teams in your company. It's a playground. Growth is not like a serious team that will, as you mentioned, wearing ties and going into the office to have official corporate meeting in a very corporate language. No, it's not those type of people. They're almost children, because you need to kind of like wake up your inner child to ideate, to feel the freedom, to bring all the creativity and bring curiosity, because this mix of curiosity and growth mindset is what drives ideas that are different, unique, helpful, interesting, and not ideally harming users. Because if you have your inner child out, you don't want to harm anyone. You just a nice, happy person. So this mix is very important. And environment, it needs to be created, because you can't have it in a very corporate environment. Like imagine where it's like a lot of boundaries, or you're from idea to like, I don't know, like you had an idea and the next month you're waiting for the meeting or something like that. So the environment that it moves slowly, there is no plan for growth. It's a very fast moving playground for grown adults.
Yeah, I think there's something so peculiar about when we ask this question about the difference between the growth design and a product design. It's almost the same thing, but the same thin line, which is the mindset, and which is what you really emphasized on, is the art skills are mostly the same thing. We use Figma. Every tool that a product designer does use is what we also use, but it's just a change of the mindset, which you rightly mentioned. And that would drive me to the next question. You started out as a marketer, down to design and to growth. So will you say your decision to switch to growth, like maybe when you found like, okay, I think I want to go back to probably my first love as a marketer, which is growth. Will you say your decision to switch to growth was like a very, very active decision, or you just slowly realized that I think I want to go back? Or what was that instinct that made you to make the mindset shifts to growth?
I think it's the same kind of thought that makes you better growth designer, is this looking for opportunities mindset instead of looking for problems. So I would say it's quite common for product designers also. Like they're looking for problems because that's what they have in their mindset. It's their main goal. They're looking for them, they're solving them, and they apply it to the rest of their lives a lot. So whenever they are looking for a job, it's like another problem there. At least like I have to find a job, and because I'm career coaching, that's why I'm referring to the example. They see it as a problem. Whenever I see everything as an opportunity, I was like, oh wait, this sounds like a perfect mix. I can bring my experience as a marketer and finally bridge this gap between marketing teams and design teams, because I've noticed there is a lot of miscommunication happening in this like gap, because marketing teams, they have different goals, they have different understanding, they think differently. They think in terms of business-driven mindset. They think about revenue, how they can sell it, how they can earn more money. Whenever product designers normally think about user, how they can solve their problems. And we have this gap. And growth designer is a person who fills this gap, because you still need product designers. You still need people who will take care of users and polish your initial growth experiments to next level. But at the same time, you still need marketing team, because those people, they're running traffic, they're bringing people to your product. Without them, who you will be designing for, you know?
Yeah.
So growth designer is a person who sits in this gap really perfectly and jumps between those teams. So you need to be a part of marketing team, a part of product management team, and a part of product design team at the same time. And on top of it, beautiful layer, you need to be this bridge between developers who are building the product and designers, because developers are also heavily involved. And I think mistakes that have been noticed in that some teams, they ignoring developers. They think of them like, here's my final design, now build it. While whenever you work with developer closely and they able provide feedback, give you new ideas, or even correct you, you need to be open for this feedback. You need to encourage your developers to bring this feedback, because they actually know not only technology, they are also user of other apps, products, and they are users as well. So whenever they provide feedback, like, you know, this design is not clear for me, and it's a red flag. If the developer says this design is not clear for me, it's a...
I can imagine that when you design something, the person who is going to implement the design to write in the code cannot even understand, you know. That's a very big red flag for that particular feature you're designing. So before I just clue in, Ini, you mentioned something about how you made the shift in terms of being a marketer. Now, will you just say it's a active decision or slow decision? Like when you make the switch, was it just, oh, I need to join now? Or was it a slow realization like, okay, let me just make the shift?
I would say anything is active decision, because not taking a decision is a passive behavior. So, and taking opportunity is an active. Just my approach to life is, whenever I see opportunity, I would really regret if I won't try it. So I always approach everything with very open-minded, welcoming message. So if I see opportunity, most likely I will accept it. I will fail it. If it will be terrible, that's fine. I had terrible jobs. I had burned outs. Don't worry, we've been there, all been there. It's not something scares me anymore. Not taking an opportunity or taking this like passive state is something that really, really scares me.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Rather regret my decision.
Yeah. There were two things that you had said, Kristina, previously as you were speaking. One was about like a growth designer. I like to describe it as being a connector between teams. Can you give us active examples of scenarios where, one, you've been able to make that fluid movement between marketing and then talking to product management and then switching to engineering to just align stakeholders and in making a decision or in moving an experiment forward?
Yeah, so we've been at SweatCoin, I've been working at feature for influencers. So I temporarily named it Influencer Hub, and then it stuck and became a live name. So we've been working on Influencer Hub. And it's quite sensitive because influencers are not type of folks that you can invite to your user interviews and just like question them a lot. So it's a bit of like blind game whenever you design something for them. And the best source of knowledge for influencers was our marketing manager. So it's important to mention probably that like whenever you're a growth designer, for you being this bridge, being this communicator, is essential. So your storytelling skills and communication skills needs to be really strong, because you not only need to understand all the people on the team, you need to translate other people to other people, which is really funny. You're kind of like a translator, even though you all speak the same language, or is it English or Russian or anything else. It's like there's blockers everywhere when you're trying to bring them in one room and let them communicate with each other. So our kind of source of knowledge was our marketing manager. And our developers, they also they had illusions that like working with influencers, it's like some kind of like dark pattern schemes that they all like shaky and they're trying to like use our product to trick their followers. And also we had our product manager who was trying like to just like implement something faster because we need to switch to another task. We are a growth team. So I was balancing this situation. First of all, I need to bring the knowledge holder into the game and share her valuable knowledge with everyone else. And you need to kind of sell those knowledge to the rest of the team. So you need to tell the story on behalf of this person because she's not good at telling the story. You need to kind of complete the story in your head and tell it to others. So you're telling the story, and now the rest of the team aligned with what influencer expectations are, what's influencer story. They just want to be sure that their hard work of inviting people to our product, it's visible, it's clear, it's simple, and that they know how much they can earn if they will continue bringing those people to our product, which is quite a simple story to tell. But it's hard sometimes to kind of like wrap it correctly for the rest of the team. And then I need to kind of, I need to persuade our developers that it's not some dark patterns, tricky stuff, guys, that those people, they're actually trying to kind of earn money through their hard work, through content creation, that it's actually a job. So I need to kind of like run a small workshop explaining how influencers work, that it's like that video editing, you should guys know, like running a podcast is a hard job.
Yeah.
A lot of editing.
It is.
You know it. And people who never really touch the world of influencers or content creators, there are a lot of myths around, and it's hard for them to kind of like believe, because the first thing that comes to their mind is like a teenage TikToker making $10 million per year by, I don't know, chewing something on camera or drinking some weird stuff. So basically something stupid. And this picture is strongly associated with content creators and influencers. So you need to kind of like change the mindset, change this framework of how to think, even bring those influencers, their examples, their stories for developers to explain that it's not some kind of gambling.
Dark patterns, yeah.
Yeah, it's not gambling, it's not dark patterns. We are safe here, like people are trying. And then I had a product manager that I need to explain that we can't hurry up with this feature, that because we are lacking significant information, that we need to kind of like simplify the tasks first. So we need to launch in smaller steps to make sure we're doing correctly, because we don't have direct access to user feedback. So we would need to improve it like really step by step and simplifying our steps without like, let's launch the huge feature and finish with it. I want to switch to user acquisition. We have growth loops coming. And I'm like, okay. So you are the person bringing this balance. And it sounds a lot of like owning a business. Because as a business owner, you would do pretty the same. You will go and calm down your developers, take the knowledge from person who possesses them, and calm down someone who is pushing to hurry up. So being a growth designer is a lot of being a business owner, a business person. And that's why I mentioned in the beginning, like that management is a part, project management
exactly.
is a part of it.
Yeah. I was going to say that because it's not validate the point, because when you mentioned about having that product management skill set as part of your soft skills as a product designer, I was like, maybe just hearing that for the first time. But I also sort of understand about, maybe I will dive deep down into that question later on, but there's this other aspect I want us to look about. You rightly explained to us why storytelling is quite important skill set as a growth designer, how you could communicate and ensure that there's a balance between what you're trying to build for, what you're trying to test for, between the stakeholders, the engineers. Now, looking at soft skills for a growth designer, we've all agreed now that we all have the same hard skills. We all use Figma, we all use Sketch, prototyping too, as a product designer. But looking at a growth designer, now, what are the soft skills that you think is very crucial for a growth designer to be successful at his day-to-day activities? Now, I could highlight a few of them, maybe data analysis or interpretation of data, maybe making research, A/B testing, experimentation, or the use of psychology, or like you said, storytelling. Which of these skills do you think is very crucial for a designer to, probably someone who is a product designer trying to start growing that mindset? How should they start developing those skill sets?
So first of all, you need a strong base. That's why it's easier for senior product designers to switch into growth, because they already have a strong base. And a strong base of a good product designer, it includes behavioral psychology or psychology in general. It includes data analysis. It includes research, user research, and all the methodologies of user research, A/B testing and experimentation. It's all there. I call it base because you need it in order to enter the growth. You can't trying to skip or sneak into growth, ignoring it, because this strong base should not distract you from the actual growth tasks and activities. Because whenever you're lacking some knowledge, or even if you're a slow designer, if you're not fast enough in Figma, it would be your blocker by switching to growth, because growth moves extremely fast. It's extremely fast. And when you join in the growth teams, there is not that much time to kind of trying to bring and level up your skills that you're lacking. That needs to be default. So this base is something that you need to have. And if you're lacking something, I would say focus on your base first before trying to learn and put layers of growth design, soft and hard skills on top of it. Because it would be super hard. It's whenever I think about UX UI, and it's the same. So in this kind of case, UX is skeleton of your product design background, your base, and UI is growth design that you're putting on top of it. You're shaping into it something beautiful to present differently. But the core, your UX is exceptional product design skills that needs to be there. And I would say that my most successful skill as a product designer, as a freelancer, as a marketer, and as a growth designer is the same. It's storytelling and presentation. You need to be able to sell yourself, your ideas in this career world. Because whenever you do, if you freelance, if you're a marketer, if you're a designer, it doesn't matter. You need to sell your ideas. You need to persuade people. You need to influence people with your ideas. And this is the most powerful skills. That is the most powerful skill you can kind of think of in any career direction. So I would say whenever you have time, focus on growing your public speaking skills, your presentation skills, your storytelling at any level in your career. It's extremely important.
Sorry, Ini, before you got in, I think this is really, really different from the way I've been saying it. Because when I ask this question, I do get how, these skills are very important, but you bring a different perspective, and I really, really, that's really mind-blowing for me. And I'll just allow Ini to go ahead with the question. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, that's what I was following up on to saying. I mean, we've seen the strength of storytelling in not just the way you present yourself as a designer, but also when you're sharing case studies, presentations that I have seen you do, just articles that you write. You definitely bring that power of storytelling into it, and it's impressive. Let's say base is sorted, right? And now you're looking to move into growth. And you're saying, as a mentor, storytelling is one skill you need to really hone in on. How would you recommend that a designer goes about developing those skills? What are the necessary things to have in place, and how can they grow as a storyteller?
That's a great question. And because I'm coaching and I'm going through a lot of portfolios and case studies, and it's so much pain for me to look at someone's case study when you see a potential for story. Such a great story to tell, and it's just wasted on paragraph of context and some initial thoughts, and guys, who tells a story? So especially the first thing you can start with is to just redesign your portfolio and rewrite your case studies as a first step. So I think it's a very good exercise because you already have it written in a way that it has all the information you need for your story. It's just not the story. So I think it's a very good exercise because you need to kind of put a different hat on you and imagine a hiring manager or another growth product manager or growth product designer looking at your portfolio trying to immediately understand from your case study what's there for me, what value you can bring on the table. And I like, you have to scroll to the end of the case study to find the value, or like, guys, bring the value to the table. So whenever it comes to the story, especially for your case studies, this is a bit of broken story, because you need to start with this clickbait description, or I call it clickbait intro, because you need to sell the rest of the story. We are living in a society of overwhelmed content, of overwhelming information from all the channels we're used to. So people are very lacking time, and we're seeing it like with all the biases that we are using so automatically, because we are dealing with so much content online. So you need to really put yourself in the shoes of hiring manager looking at like 20, 30 portfolio in a row, and imagine that this person trying to understand your story, and it just lists a typical perfect design process that I've never seen live in my career. I've never seen it happening perfectly. I was like, how did you manage it to do? I want to know secret. How did you go through the whole perfect design process? Never happened to me. The first red flag for me would be like if I see the perfect process. And then on top of this perfect process, there is no story. What you've been doing here. Okay, thanks me for describing the project. I got it. There was a feature. It was designed. It was shipped. It had some particular even outcomes. Sometimes they started to involve the numeric outcomes in product design portfolios as well. So you see them, but you don't see why they're here. What you personally did or achieved or brought to the table, I don't understand, you know. So I think the biggest important skill of telling the stories is to understand who is your audience and what values you can offer for this audience.
That's right.
It's like with public speaking, with TED Talks, with presentation, who are in front of you and what can you offer?
So I'm actually now curious, right? I reckon like your storytelling has absolutely gotten you out of a few tough spots with stakeholders, right? I'm wondering, could you share one of those scenarios where you've been able to navigate like just rocky cross-collaboration relationships, and how did you resolve the conflicts? How did storytelling come and basically save your ass?
I really love that story because it was early in my career when I was just a marketing manager, and I've been dealing with stakeholder who wasn't really believer of marketing at all. So it's like, you know, you hire a marketing manager, like it's quite a common trend. You hire a marketing manager and you expecting results in a couple of weeks, then excels, you know. And I think like the storytelling really saved me because I was able to bring his own experience as a story and of interacting in marketing, because the day before he was complaining to me that like he was trying to buy a car. So he contacted the guy by phone and he said like, yeah, call me back later. And he called him back later and then he wasn't answering. And then he called back later to him and the car was gone. You know, he shared a story of an unsatisfied user showing the product offer. And I brought this example and reversed for describing our user experience. Like, so exactly what you experience is what our users experiencing whenever they call us, interact us, and find out that they can't get the service today, even though your advertising promises they would. And it was like, I've seen his face changing. I was like,
Yeah.
Oh my God.
you
I
know?
love that.
And sometimes it's just like this change of perspective is what people need. They need example from their personal life or from their personal experience. And as a designer, I will advertise a book.
Go ahead.
The book that I recommend for everyone to read is a book by Mehdi Hassan, Win Every Argument. And it sounds like a very something like not very nice book. Why do I win every argument? Why would I start an argument? But the truth is, argument in his vision is any engagement whenever you're trying to bring your ideas to the table and impact other people with your ideas. So if you think of argument in this term, then we have arguments daily. We have argument right now when I'm trying to tell you that storytelling is important. You might have different beliefs. By the fact that I'm telling the stories or bringing my experience, you're starting to believe, oh, probably that's a good idea. Storytelling sounds kind of good, you know?
Yeah.
It's not so bad. So it's the same with arguments. So it's a really good book for designers to read, or anyone involved in corporate environment, because that's what you need on daily basis.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm advertising this book, because he really clearly emphasized the importance of connecting with the audience, because the first step in his book is actually to win your audience. Once your audience is on your side, you can sell them anything, or you can sell any argument and so on. So in order to win the audience, you need to show them that you understand them. And it's the same with storytelling, and especially with stakeholders. You need to show that you understand them. You need to bring their personal experience, their something that they shared with you, or might be true with them, to connect with them. Because this connection, it builds trust, it builds value, and it helps you to bring the right ideas to the table. Because sometimes selling ethical design, and especially ethical growth, is a huge challenge.
Yeah. I love how you have described that. And I would even take it one step further and say, look, it's something that, well, from my legal background, everything that you make is an argument, right? And it's just that understanding for designers to realize that you're either winning or losing an argument anyway, so why not win? And winning is not necessarily a case of someone has to be at a loss. I think it's that reframing of the mindset when it's like, if you're winning the argument, it's so that we can all move forward. It's sort of like, can I bring every one of us on a level playing ground? Because when we're working in our different silos, we're not level. We're on different hierarchies of understanding whatever the perspective is. And it's also that thing where, with stakeholders, you also have to be mindful, because when we're in silos, everyone is trying to push their agenda, so to speak, of what their belief of what the users needs. So you being a growth designer and acting as a connector, it's empathy around the board. And storytelling is the tool for making sure that you're leveling that playing ground, basically. So I absolutely love that analogy. Okay, so I'm going to ask you one more question before I throw it back to Manu, and we can begin to round this up. So I would say then that, have you worked in an environment where it was not necessarily like growth design principles were being actively practiced, and you were the first one in, sort of helping to build that? And if you've been in that environment, what would your recommendation be to designers who find themselves in that kind of environment at the moment? How can they begin to bring that growth mindset and just helping everyone along to just begin to think differently about the importance of design and business being brought together on the growth?
That's a really good question. And I think I'm facing this question a lot with my mentees, because especially when you're junior designer or mid designer, you don't have authority, you don't have the weight to battle stakeholders or bring your opinion and so on. So, and I feel a lot of recommendations in terms of trying to empathize, trying to kind of read more books, educate yourself, show your courses. No, you need proofs. You need to prove that you're worth the time of the business, and then you can bring something to the table. Nothing works better on stakeholders and numbers. Ever since I was a marketer, the numbers is a magic tool. You're bringing it to stakeholders and they say yes to everything. Even though those numbers are hypothetical, or you calculated them based on trend you noticed or something like that, it doesn't matter. You need to support your ideas by something. But something, and numbers are quite significant. So that's why data analysis and in general data interpretation and working with data is so important, because you can understand the same numbers differently. So,
True.
And
true.
there's so many, why it's happening. There are so many reasons behind particular numbers. And in many cases, as a growth designer, you're playing a bad game. You just assume probably this is the reason. I hope so. We'll find out. So you're playing the bats. And even if you're playing the bats, you still need to bring those numbers together with your bat. Because if you will bring your bat without those numbers, or like without any like user feedback, user impact, anything that is from real world of stakeholder cares about, you will lose. You don't have a chance. You don't have authority. You don't have enough experience at any level in your career. Even if you're hired as a senior product growth leadership manager designer, you don't have authority to kind of like deal with stakeholder, because stakeholder is always one step up and level up. They're looking down, so they're expecting you to be prepared. And when you're prepared, you bring your research, you're bringing data with you, you're bringing, even you need to educate them. Like storytelling a lot is about education. That's why I would say my storytelling skills were significantly improved by mentoring, because I need to tell stories all the time. You need to kind of like teach people about something. And education is a huge part of your collaboration with stakeholders. Because they're not designers, they're not growth designers. They don't understand, like if user feedback is like, I don't know, we have 80% drop in conversions, whatever, we have $10 revenue growth, who cares about those drops, You need to educate your stakeholders, the rest of the team. And this mix of like education and kind of bringing the right data and the right interpretation to the table is something that saves you a lot in many cases dealing with any level of authority. Because people love data, especially managers. Oh my God.
Yeah. They want to see the metrics move, obviously. So that's the reason. So just to cue in a little bit into this question, like personally, I also say I find myself in the same scenario. Let's say as a designer, right? First designer, and you are taking the leap into growth design, right? And you find yourself in a sales-led company, but maybe trying to make a pivot to product-led. Now, how do you sell this idea? How do you take ownership of this? Starting a growth team.
That totally makes sense. And also you have kind of an answer in your last piece of the question, take ownership. So it's the answer. So the problem I'm noticing with many designers, they're not ready to take ownership. They're not ready to be involved in other stages. So even when I was like explaining to my boyfriend, the developer, what is growth design, and he was like, but why do you care? Should not business care about pricing? Why do you care about pricing strategy or so? It's like it's a manager task, That's not. If you want to be involved, if you want to own what you're doing, you need to be involved and own what you're doing, including being responsible. And this responsibility is something that scares people. And the ability to take on responsibility is a skill. And I think like the reason why I was moving fast throughout my career, like because no one else in my surroundings wanted to take responsibility. I became the marketing manager quite quickly because people in my team, no one wanted to be responsible. No one wanted to be like this person people asked what to do. And whenever you discover in corporate environments that like if you're taking a bit more responsibility, people coming back to you because no one wants to take this responsibility. And it's like the fastest way to kind of like start owning the process and becoming the part of the process, because you need to be a bit of a knowing designer, asking why do we need this feature? I'm not the end point you came to with a brief or task. Tell me why we're doing it, how it affects the business. Does it benefit the business? How it benefits? What if it could benefit the business more? I have an idea. You need to be proactive as a designer. And especially if you're trying to kind of like bring growth and grow a growth environment or like establish a growth environment in your territory, in your working environment, you need to be proactive. You need to take the ownership and take the responsibility for all the mistakes and problems that will arise. And taking responsibility is not so scary. Like, people think it comes together with something like, I don't know, you will get fired or something, or it's hard for me to kind of like understand like how many fears around responsibility are. And it's easier than it seems. Like, if you really empathize with a person who is responsible for something, if you're really ready to empathize with other people on your team, it's easy to take responsibility. Because you know your people, you know your team, you know how much more value you can bring by taking this responsibility, then it's way, way easier than it seems.
Honestly, what you said is accurately spot on, because I actively kind of had that experience in particular place I've worked before, where I actively took ownership, and it's kind of resulted in, when they were laying off, I wasn't laid off, but I look back to see the process, how I've led, how I've taken initiatives, how I've taken ownership, and I see that that's really, really one of the things that I could kind of help myself. And in the same vein, when a designer is in a kind of a company where he's trying to bring in the growth mindset to the team, I think taking responsibility and taking ownership of tasks is actually a way to do that. So let's talk a little bit about designers who are not growth designers now. Now, you've mentioned how storytelling is one of the great skills as a growth designer to, sell your ideas and able to bring people on board. Now, let's look at designers who are not growth designers, who are just getting to learn what growth design is. Now, what are the actionable steps for you to become a growth designer? Like, getting started, oh, this is growth design. How do I get started until I become like maybe a senior growth designer? Like, those ladders, how do you take the first step till you become an expert?
So, as I mentioned before, the base is very important. So the first action step is a review if your base is ready, if you have all the necessary product design skills in order, and if you're ready to kind of like work fast with those skills. Because a lot of designers, they prefer pushing pixels or create a perfect UI. It's about like preferences. So you need to review your own assets as a first step. Am I ready for that? Am I really the right person to shift into growth? Do I want to learn? Do I want to make mistakes? Do I want not to be afraid of my mistakes? And I have my base. So once you reviewed your assets, what you've already done in the career is like initial very important step, because it also helps you to understand, do I really want to become growth designer? Because sometimes it seems like you want until you understand what it comes with. The package of being the connector, the bridge, taking responsibility, being proactive, always being involved. So
No days off.
No, you still can have days off, but it basically kind of stops the process without you. So you really need to plan your holidays and so on. But basically, you need to understand the level of responsibility and if the goal worth your effort, if you really want to join this party. And I know like people are getting interested because like salaries look sexy and like, oh, look, they fired thousands of people, but they're hiring growth designers. Sounds fun. It's getting attractive. And as usual with something new in the industry, it attracts people that are not ready to be part of this role. So it's really, really important to evaluate your assets, evaluate your goal, and understand if I'm ready. So it's like core first steps that I recommend for everyone. And the second step is, once you feel like, yes, it's all what I want, you need really to cultivate your growth mindset and curiosity. Those two blocks that will be moving you toward your goal way, way faster, because you need to why a lot. Every experience, every failed A/B test, every launch of the feature is a learning for you. And curiosity here is especially important. I remember I was underestimating curiosity because I thought everyone is naturally curious. I thought like it's a default until later I realized I started working with other designers. Oh, that's only my thing.
That's you. It's me.
I was applying bias to other designers, hoping like, oh, everyone thinks like me, yeah. But no, and actually you realize that like this curiosity is very important because it keeps you motivated on exploring ideas, and it's like essential skill for a growth designer. And why I'm saying cultivating those skills, it's because they can be grown. It's not a talent you're born with. It's something that you develop. You invest your time. You start small. Like growth mindset, you start with small, like I will go and risk with this design and see how it works. And if it's not working, I will learn why. So you're focusing on why more than on, oh no, it's the end of the world, it's a mistake. Oh no, sorry. So you really need to focus on this, why it's not working. So you need to cultivate this approach in your, like, and it helps when you start doing it like in everyday life, because you can't just focus on your career and use Wine framework for your career and other frameworks for your personal life. So it changes your personal life as well. So you need to be ready for that. And when it comes to curiosity, you need to start small. Like I know like a lot of designers are very empathetic and they're trying to understand why people doing some stuff. But it's a really good exercise to do it in your daily life. So instead of getting angry at a screaming neighbor at 2 a.m. at the night, something happening, you just, why he's screaming? Probably he had a very bad day. And now you're not angry at him at all. You're just like trying to understand what might be and it's also connected to storytelling, because while you're getting curious about things, whenever you're getting curious, you're starting to think of stories. Like what might be the reason? So why user didn't click our huge red button in the middle of the screen? Probably it was too scary. Like what if I will open it on mobile phone? Or what if he is, I don't know, colorblind and he doesn't see it's red? So you see like all those skills are getting blended together.
Connected, yeah.
And you can grow them. And once you start thinking of it like of your everyday exercise, it's getting easier with every day. And the third step is to actually implement those skills into reality. So the easiest way is to implement it on your case studies. Start telling stories. Start explaining your values, your outcomes, what you can bring. So if you want to land a growth design role, you need to bring it and show that like, I'm this rising star. I really have the right skills and mentality for you to hire me. Because how do I know as a hiring manager if it's you or not? So you need to showcase what you've learned from your exercises and like base and everything. So those 3 action steps, I think like it's the best way to start with. But again, the first is the most crucial, is to understand if you really want to start.
Yeah, as a designer who is ready to get into growth design, but then you're in the space of having your portfolio. So how do you get your portfolio ready for your first growth role? How do you showcase your project in a growth focused or with a growth lens?
It's your first growth design task, by the way. I'm always like shocked a bit that like many designers, they are not thinking of their portfolios of a project. It is your project and it's your growth project. So you need to do the regular design process, research your audience, competitors, trying to understand the niche, think of like the message you are giving. So it all starts with the just regular design process, even if not only for growth designers, even for regular product designers, it's pretty the same. So you need to treat your portfolio as a project that goes through many design stages and that follows particular process. Once you have this approach, it's getting easier because you will get a lot of ideas from your research, from trying to understand how to wrap the message. And then when people do this first step really correctly, they treat it as a project, then they, for some reason, they just skip the personal branding. And then you end up with portfolios that could be applied to anyone. You can just replace the names and photos. It's just like, it could be, I don't know, Emmanuel, Kristina, it just like replace them. You have no authenticity. No personal branding. Your personal brand is a way to stand out. And I even thought of starting a course on personal branding because it's so bad. And it's so funny because we are dealing with designers, people who should be aware of importance of branding and understanding the personal brand and treat their portfolio as a project. And then for some reason, like 90% of portfolios reviewed are skipping personal branding part. So the best way for you to stand out as a growth or product designer is like to introduce personal branding. And this branding needs to be across all your social presence. You are a digital product. Your portfolio, your website, your social presence is a digital product. We are living in the world where we don't have so much in-person interaction. So you are a digital product that presented in various channels. And all those channels, they should have the same message. So if you want to be a growth designer, you should tell, I'm a growth designer. I'm working for growth. I'm having the right background. I have the right passion and so on. So the first step, treat it as a project. Second, personal branding. And the third is put values on your website. What can you offer? In every case study, in every portfolio item you have, what is your offering? Even though like someone has a very nice branding and they treat it as a portfolio, and then you like go a step further into their case studies and just like a ton of text without explaining what they're for me, what can you offer? So it should be like really clear what values you can offer. So those three components, unfortunately, in the current market with layoffs and everything, they're very, very crucial if you want to land your opportunity, especially if you want to break into industry you're not part of. You need to stand out, and you need all three elements perfectly aligned in order to break through.
It's really amazing. Honestly, Kristina, thank you so much. It's been really amazing just walking through all of these things with you and to just go over it. Like, we've now covered understanding your background and the differences between traditional design roles and growth, and also what is necessary for translating into growth. That need to have a base, that need for you to have that predefined growth mindset, or it's something that you can cultivate, right? But that base is something that's constant, that does not change. And then we've also then talked about like the soft skills, the hard skills, that it's basically the same thing. Product designers to growth designers, we have the same hard skills, but the only difference is what, and then you brought the curveball, which I love so much, which is the power of storytelling. Right? And how that translates across different stakeholders. You've given us examples of how those stakeholders, oh gosh, I love that story. I will definitely find a way to use it with my mentees. It's like, if you ever think you need to be able to twist something around on someone, find a personal story in their lives, something that's just recently happened to them, and then flip the story around to help them understand the perspective you're trying to communicate. And we've talked about growth as a leveler, where bringing everyone along is the priority. It's not necessarily a win-lose scenario. It needs to be win-win for the entire company to be able to move forward. And now we've just come around full circle and ended this talking about how we can all learn to treat ourselves as a product in this digital world, right? It's not just about slapping on a portfolio and sending multiple job apps out with a bland looking portfolio that no one gets interested in, but also just taking that time to understand yourself, cultivate your personal brand, and treat yourself like the product. And so for all of our listeners today, I hope that you have enjoyed this really amazing session with Kristina. It's been fantastic learning from you, and I invite everyone to subscribe to more episodes. There is so much more in this series of Growth Career Playbook that we're starting there. We have an interesting lineup of guests, of which Kristina is the first in that series, and we would love to hear from you. What are you struggling with in your growth design journey, or as you're trying to transition into growth? Are there particular speakers you would like for us to reach out to, or just topics that you'd like for us to talk about with guests that are coming onto this series? Please reach out to us. You know where to find us, and all of the resources will be listed below. All right, we're going to move into the lightning round questions. real quick, and this is going to be as rapid fire as possible. So are you ready?
Yeah, I made some notes because those questions are the hardest one for me. I was like, oh my God, this is something that I will forget for sure. I will tell everything about the growth design, but no. So let's go.
I love that she's like, no, I'm prepared. I've got notes. All right. Okay. First one. What are top 3 products that you use daily and you love?
I mean, it won't be a surprise. It's Notion, Slack, and ChatGPT.
Not surprised.
I'm gonna sell it to everyone because like ChatGPT, it's like having a personal assistant helping you with ideas and brainstorming all the time. It's so good.
Yeah. Okay. All right. What's one design resource that you keep going back to?
Mobbing, real designs over
references. Yeah.
Okay. Three books you like to recommend?
So first of all, Ruined by Design by Mike Monteiro is amazing book. It's so angry, so emotional. It's such a rare combo when you get angry together with the book, and it explores ethics of design. So really, really good book. My top 1 favorite. But also the one I mentioned, Win Every Argument by Mehdi Hassan, is just like for any designer, for anyone working in corporate environment, it's your friend. Just read it. Just have it at home. And also because I'm trying to kind of like keep my balance in life, work-life balance, so I really recommend Happier Hour by Cassie Holmes. It's compared to like, self-improvement books, it's a book that is more focused on scientifically proven method of reaching happiness. So it's like scientific happiness, how to achieve it, a guide, because I love science compared to like just, self-improvement mechanics.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so what profession would you be in if you're not in your current job?
A product manager. I will.
I'm not surprised.
How about out of tech? How about if you're not in tech? I like to bring that twist in. Let's say if you're not a product manager outside tech.
So let me think. Oh my God. Well, to be honest, I would probably be a teacher. I don't care what to teach. I don't care what to teach, but I would be a teacher.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. All right. What's your favorite food that you can eat for every meal, even if it's the only thing that's available in an apocalypse?
That question really scares me because like I imagined eating it like every day and all my favorite dishes just disappeared. So I decided to think of like, I will be just chasing new tastes, something new, because like with design, I love something new. I love trying new stuff. So the same with food. Food is very similar to design if you think in like bigger picture, because it's a form of design, like a homemade design.
So that's why I asked this question, and that's why I phrased it this way, because I know that we're talking to designers and your brain is going to want to go there. So it's an apocalypse. You've got only one meal. Let's say you had an insight to the apocalypse happening, right? So you know it's coming. You can only pick one food that you will eat all day, every single day. There's no taste chasing here. What meal will it be?
I would choose not meal. I would choose nutritious wise. So it was rice, chicken, and broccoli, because my nutritions will be perfect all the time. If I had to eat it, it doesn't matter. The taste doesn't matter anymore. So at least I will be healthy.
Nice.
I like how you think. Nice. All right. Nice. And the last one is what's your favorite movie that you always rewatch?
Anything from Studio Ghibli. It's so much love.
Mm-hmm. I'm currently watching for the third time My Neighbor Totoro.
Oh, that's a cute one. I think I rewatched it like a half year ago together with my boyfriend when I was really sick, and I was like, oh my God, it's so good, especially when you're sick. I don't know how it's connected. It makes you feel better. It definitely does.
I'm sort of lost. I'm not a movie person. I watch football, and so I can't relate. All right, nice.
Okay, all right, and that is it. Thank you so much, Kristina. This has been really insightful and very informative.
Thank you so much, guys, for having me. It was really, really interesting experience. I would be really happy to join you one more time whenever you want to have me again, guys.
Yeah, amazing.
No, amazing. We will, honestly.
Yeah, thanks so much, Christina and Ini.